You are listening to the People Centric Podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do.
Hey, People Centric leaders. This is Stephanie Anderson, and we have kind of a fun, interesting topic for you today. As you know, we like to keep up with the trends of what's happening in the world of the workplace. And so we read a lot of articles and books and try to keep up with what's happening. And last week, we came across a new term. And so maybe you've heard of this and maybe you haven't, to describe what the heck is happening in the workplace right now. And it's called quiet cracking. And so some of you might have heard that and be like, yes, I feel this and I know what that is. Or maybe you read the article on MSN too. But we're going to talk about it today. And so I've got Don and Diana on the podcast with us. Hello.
Why is Microsoft making such a big deal, MSN making such a big deal out of small ducks that don't make loud noises? Like quiet quacking would make sense if you're just a small little duck and you can't make a lot of sound. Why are they making such a big deal out of that?
You know, it might be time to turn up your hearing aids just a tiny bit on this one,
Oh, I
but
see. Cracking, quiet cracking, not quacking. Okay, I see. Quiet,
Quiet quacking is much cuter than
quiet
quiet.
quacking is fun.
quiet quacking would be adorable. If someone knows where that video lives on the internet of a duck quacking quietly, that is the positivity I need right now. But unfortunately, we're talking about quiet cracking.
Quiet cracking. Okay, so
Quiet
we all know what
cracking.
quiet quacking is. What's quiet cracking then?
Good question, Don. So, MSN was citing a research that had just been done in the workplace, and they say quiet cracking is the erosion of workplace satisfaction from within, which sounds really sad. But they said they found that they feel like there's a middle world between active burnout. So you have people that are just like your people that have maybe been pushing too hard and achieving, and they are burning out, they're doing too much. And then the quiet quitters, which I think that's a term that everybody's pretty familiar with now, of the people who are just like, I don't like this job anymore. And so I'm just going to kind of stop doing it, but I still work here. So they say it's kind of in between that people that are quietly cracking at work, like they're breaking a little bit every day, are the people who both feel unappreciated from their managers and closed off from career advancement while doing work they otherwise like. So the study said that this results in unhappiness, and frustration slowly builds until demotivated employees have to force themselves through the workday, causing their attention and productivity to drop. So they said, like, unlike burnout, it doesn't always manifest in exhaustion, but also unlike quiet quitting, it doesn't show up in performance metrics immediately, but it is just as dangerous.
Just
And
as
you do have to read that part of the article in your best, like, movie voice.
Yeah, I like you said it earlier, like in a world of quiet quitting, one quiet quitter quits the most. I don't know.
One quiet
Quacker,
quitter cracked.
quacker, cracker, quacker. What is it?
One quiet cracker cracked. And she sells seashells by the seashore. She cracked selling those seashells because she just couldn't sell anymore. I don't know. Like,
There you go. There you
thank
go.
you.
So this is Stevie, you made a good distinction here. So this isn't like, okay, so you're at your job. Let's put it into context here. You're at your job and you like what you do. Like you did it. You found a job that you like. Your manager's not yelling at you. It doesn't say like the situation for quiet cracking happens because your manager's a jerk. You might even like your manager. They're just not telling you a lot. They're not giving you feedback, right? So they're not telling you things. So you're quietly doing your job and it's good, but you're not getting feedback. But it's almost like you're slowly running out of gas or something like that, right? Like, is there something that kind of implies like there's something as manager that we should be giving to our people to put some fuel in the tank? Like, what is this? What's this telling us? What's this article saying to us?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that too. Like when they talk about them feeling like unappreciated by their managers or like closed off from career advancement doing work they like, I thought the same thing. And I think that's why like the cracking is a good example because it's not like this big moment, right? Where all of a sudden you didn't get the promotion or your boss gives you all this negative feedback and then you're like, I'm out of here, I'm done. It's those little movements, those little seismic shifts that build up over time. And to me, it almost seemed like, if you've heard the term like death by a thousand bee stings, like it's the employee that's like they've forgiven you for maybe not being a great leader from time to time, or they've forgiven you for not thinking about them when you had another position, or not thinking about including them in something. And they've given a chance and chance and grace and grace and grace. And they're finally at that point where they're like, okay, well, now I really feel unhappy because of all of these things that have happened that probably, like, again, if we're going to give grace to the managers in this situation, probably were maybe just genuine mistakes or they forgot they're not intentionally out to like get this person or exclude them. But those things build up over time. And it was interesting when I was reading this article, like I thought of a friend of mine who recently just like described her job to me in this way. She works at a company she loves. She's really passionate about the mission. Her job is like decently well skills matched for what she wants to do. And she's really unhappy there. And so it's like one of those where like I started asking her like, well, why then? Like what's happening? And do you just need to like buck up buttercup or like take a vacation and like regenerate? And she just started telling me all these stories about things that had happened over time and like where she'd been left out or forgotten or didn't feel cared about or did a lot of work and nobody really appreciated or recognized it. And then she's seeing other employees getting recognized for those same things. And to me, it really was like spelling out just like disengagement and how we talk about disengagement in the workforce.
Yeah, and as you talk, I can imagine some people, I've had people tell me that like their job feels groundhogish, right? The Groundhog Day effect, right? I go in, I do the thing, I go home. I go in, I do the thing, I go. And no matter what I do, it doesn't change. And no matter how hard I work, it doesn't change. No matter if I'm working on great projects or not, if I'm asking for feedback or not, like it's not doing anything different. So I feel very stuck and Groundhog Day-ish.
Yeah, and this article is pointing out a specific mechanism for that, right? It's not the disengagement's not new. It's just talking about a lot of disengagement comes from like maybe somebody does a job that's kind of blah, you don't really love your job or whatever. But this is saying like, no, you love the job, but your manager's not leaning into you. So, I mean, one of the things that we've talked about in the past and did a whole episode on is the culture grid, right? And I think about the culture grid, and the idea of the culture grid is you can evaluate, if you're a manager, you can evaluate your employees on two different axes. So think about like the one axis shows their performance. How good are they at their job? So if they're way on the left side, they're not very good. If they're way on the right side, they're great at their job. The other axis it talks about like their attitude. Are they really aligned with the company or not? If at the top, they're really aligned, they love the place. If they're at the bottom, they have a terrible attitude. So then a lot of times we'll break that into four quadrants when we're working with managers and training them, and we'll say, okay, if you're managing the bottom, so they're bad attitude and they're terrible at their job, what do you do? And of course, the answer is you tell them that they're terrible and then you fire them, right? You're going to move on with that. If that's an easy solution. Then we talk about what happens if they have a great attitude but the bad performance. The answer is you train that person. What if they have what if they're great at their job but they have a terrible attitude? The answer is you have to engage them and have a watershed conversation with them. And then we talk about how do you manage the good at their job and great attitude. And a lot of times we will hear the managers say, well, you don't have to manage that person. It's great. And the reason I bring that up is that's the scenario we're talking about right now, right? It's not like the manager necessarily, because you talked about Stephanie in that article, it says they feel unappreciated. When you feel unappreciated, doesn't mean you're not appreciated. That just means you feel unappreciated, which might mean that the other person's not saying anything. So I'm wondering, like, is that caused by managers not giving feedback to their best people because they're their best people? I don't have to worry about you. Hey, you like your job, you're well placed. I'm going to go focus on my attention on these other people.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it of what I was thinking too. And I love how you frame that in culture grid because yeah, I've heard the same thing many times from our clients is like even really involved managers will tend to get like a laissez-faire attitude toward their high performers. That they're like, well, they're great at what they do. They might be experts in their field. Like, I don't need to hold their hand to do stuff. And that's all true. But those people are also watching how you're managing the rest of the team. And if they see that all of the low performers or people with bad attitudes are getting all of your time and attention and they don't really get any from you, like I think that's contributing to this, and it's a part of that disengagement and the quiet cracking. And one stat that was in the article that really stood out to me is they said what this impacts for your good workers is their productivity. They'll stop, like it's not immediate, but over time, they're going to stop working as hard for you because they don't feel appreciated. And in this article, they estimated, and this is from a Gallup study, that disengagement costs global businesses $8.8 trillion in lost productivity. So your business may not be operating, or the company you work for, in the T's or B's, trillions or billions, but if you could contextualize that down and you apply, the disengagement stats to your company of how many people are disengaged, and then we're willing to do the math, I mean, you guys are losing money too because people don't feel appreciated. They're not giving their best work to you, or how we'll often describe a disengaged employee is like they could still be a good performer. They're coming in and they're doing all of their work and they're asking, or they're doing what you're asking them to do every day. But it's kind of like no more, no less. So like they're probably not sharing good ideas with you anymore. They're not going and helping other people on the team be more successful. They're not contributing in meetings. They're probably just sitting there and listening for like, okay, what are you asking me to do? I'm just going to go do that. And then the sad thing is they're going to still have those ideas, but they're going to take them somewhere else.
Yeah. So then the question is like, okay, so as a manager, right, how do you show appreciation for people that you appreciate? Like we talked to a lot of managers who will say, well, Diana's awesome. We love Diana. And then I'll say, well, have you told Diana that lately? And they'll say like, well, she already knows. She already knows. And it's like, well, how does she know? Did you tell her or did you say anything? So maybe how do you have that? Diana, if I was going to tell you that you're a rock star, what's the best way for me to do that?
Well, I like very specific information about me being a rock star. Don't just be like, you're awesome. I already know that. I want to know what you really thought was good. What part of my awesomeness did you connect with?
Specific. So like, for example, I could say like, Diana, it was awesome how you maintain, like Diana came into town with our team like last week and we did a team retreat. Diana, it was great that you connected with everybody so quickly, but the reason you connected so quickly with everybody is because you take time every single week, even though you work remotely from the rest of the team, to connect one-on-one with people on our team on a regular basis. And you follow up not just on the business stuff, but also like how their lives are doing, all of that kind of stuff. And that's really helped you to maintain a great relationship with our team. And we really appreciate that about you. Is that a good example of that?
That's a great example because then I can be like, cool, I'll keep doing that, right? Like, I'm going to keep doing that now. And I'm not going to lose steam on that because you've noticed it and recognized it. So now I'm like, okay, cool. That's an effort that I'm putting in that is intentional and takes my time, but that is also being recognized and seems important. So I'm going to keep doing that.
Yeah. So then I could say to Stephanie, I love how you put Stephanie size holes in the walls for your clients. Like you are whatever it takes for a client, like whenever you're working with somebody, like you just go all in with them and figure out stuff. And even if we don't have a specific play to call for that, I love that you like figure it out. Like you work back and I love how you come back to the rest of the team and you ask questions and you like get input and like, hey, I need some brainstorming here. And let's dive through this because I'm going to find a way to help you be successful, whether you like it or not. Like we're doing this. I love that you do that, Steph. So that's a good example, Stephanie.
Oh, that's a great example. I think keep going. That could be the podcast today. I like this. Yeah.
Is Don praising everybody else? That's really good. Okay. Well, that wasn't hard. Like we didn't plan any of that stuff. And both of those, by the way, were authentic and real. So I'm not like making up stuff as we're talking about that. But as a manager, it is easier to focus our time sometimes when we're driving to work to think about the toxic employee or the person who's already disengaged and forget about the person who's engaged who does a really great job. We when we train managers, we say actually that's the hardest person to manage is the person who's engaged and is great at they're engaged and they're great at their job because that's the person that needs to be challenged. That's the person you need to keep feeding. That's the person who you tend to give your problems to. hey, I've got a problem, go fix this for me. You tend to give them the problems. And then if you forget to show the appreciation, and they get worn down over time. So I'm sure a lot of people listening to this, again, sometimes we have we can hear people when they're listening to the podcast of saying, well, what if I am quiet cracking? What do I do if I'm the one cracking?
Oh, that's a good question. I was also going to add real quick that I think that you, Don, do a good job of keeping the vision in front of us so that we all know we're part of something bigger. So that when I'm doing jobs that I really don't like to do, like bank recs or something stupid like that, I still know that it's part of a bigger picture, right? I'm like, okay, I have to do this, but I also get to do this other stuff and it like connects to this for me. So there's a good why behind all of the what's. And I think that keeps high performers engaged too. Like that helps me stay engaged when I'm like, oh, I have another problem, but it's part of this bigger thing.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Dan. That was nice.
I totally agree with that. I was actually telling one of our clients this morning about something we do on our team that we call Mr. Harkey's Neighborhood. And I don't know if we've ever talked about this on a podcast before,
I did
but
not name that. I did not name that. I just had to say I was not the one that named that.
oh, we called it Mr. Harkey's Neighborhood, where I don't, and to be honest, I don't know how often we do it. It's at least once a quarter, every other month-ish, where literally Don just comes and like talks to our team and shares what's in his mind about like our movement of like, we want every company in the world to be people centric or at least a little more people centric and put people at the center of every company. And so like what's in Don's mind about like the movement and like you were saying, Diana, that bigger picture that it's easy for each of us to get in the weeds on our work and figuring out like how do I solve this? How do I help our clients? How do I do this? And we can lose track of that bigger picture. And so I think that's a way you sit really well in your role, Don, as our leader and managing and helping us like connect to that bigger vision and like show us that on a regular basis. That's been really helpful.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. It's funny because we talked initially about that, like you should do that. Managers should do that for their employees, but like that's a very human thing in any relationship, right? And I think we need to bring the relationship thing back into work. Like I think, I mean, within there's lines, right? There's clear lines about what that looks like, folks. And we all know what those lines are. If you're an adult, you know what those lines are. But we do need to, like, people who are going to work together need to have a relationship. And to have that relationship, in terms of a working relationship, you need to give each other feedback. And if you only give each other negative feedback or no feedback, then the relationship is going to suffer. And I think that's maybe the root of what quiet cracking is. It's a breakdown of relationships at work where you don't feel like you're supported with anybody. Because I was thinking about the fuel, because cracking, like it implies like there's too much weight or something, or it's like missing a fuel. I said that at the beginning. I'm like, I was thinking to myself, what's the fuel? And then it clicked for me just now, like the fuel is the purpose that we have with other people. That's the fuel. And if you don't hear that feedback from other relationships that you have at work and you're not getting that feedback, then you're not getting that fuel. It's not filling up your tank. Your tank's going to go empty and it's going to put a lot of stress on your machine. So yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah. I like hearing how you thought about the cracking because I almost thought about the cracking in terms of like a drying out. So like if you have a vessel or a pot or something that like normally has a lot of moisture or something in it, and then all of a sudden you let it go completely dry, like that will like may be smaller. I'm not using good science words like you are, Don. It's gonna get smaller and it's gonna crack because of stuff in the air, you know? Yeah. I was also raised by a scientist. Don't let my dad listen to this
You've got
podcast
a lot of
episode.
game in that space. Don't knock
That's
yourself.
just
That's pretty
like,
good.
don't
You're
let
actually
my
right.
parents listen to this.
It's
Um,
drying out.
but it's drying out. And because you had asked a couple of minutes ago, Don, like if I'm an employee and I feel this way, what could I do? And I thought one thing that was interesting in the research study that they cited was that like employees need structured ongoing learning paths. So even if you're listening to this and you're like, maybe I don't feel super comfortable being vulnerable with my team or having more personal connected relationships because I know there are people who feel that way, that that's uncomfortable space for you. You can still do this and you can still support your team by giving them a path. Like the people who feel unappreciated feel like you're not watching where they're going, you're not appreciating the effort they're putting toward moving stuff forward. So I think managers, you can do that, but employees, you can ask for that. Like if you feel like you don't have that or you're not getting noticed, you feel underappreciated, then like go to your manager and say like, "Hey, I would love to talk about my growth and development and where I go from here and what are the skills I need to develop and how could I do this?" And that's such a positive way to share how you're feeling because that gives your manager something like they can co-create with you or maybe something that they haven't. Like your company might have some type of leadership development program that your manager maybe they did forget to tell you about it, but this could be a good reminder for them to like plug you into that and engage you, and let's create like some structured learning opportunities for you to grow at work.
Yeah. And I love Don's question of like if you're cracking, what do you do? And yes, Stephanie, all those things definitely help. I know that I think high performers have a tendency to crack easily because we just need that like extra. I don't know. We need to be extra. And so I know I have gone to Don at times and been like, dude, I'm bored. Like, that's not saying that I don't have enough work to do. I have plenty of work to do. I need something else to do. I need a challenge. I need a project. I need something to stimulate my brain because I'm stuck in this like cycle of come in, do your job, go home, come in, do your job, go home. And everything I've tried is not working. I love our mission. I love our vision. I love our values. I love my work. I love my people, and I'm bored still. So like help me get on board. And I think if you can have those types of conversations and say like, I have ideas, I have thoughts, I have this plan for myself that I want to go these places and do these things. I think that helps your manager see where you want to grow, where you want to fit, what your strengths are. And they'll start doing more of that. But it might take you going to them and saying, I need help with this.
Yeah, and like we've got a good relationship where we can do that.
Yeah.
And I've done the
Yeah.
same thing. I've gone to you and said like, okay, I want like I'm looking for another challenge or more stuff or whatever, or I'm just feeling burned out and I don't know
Yeah.
why or whatever that kind of thing is. It also strikes me if we're talking about the relationship side, if quiet cracking is because of a lack of relationships or you're feeling disconnected from relationships, I was thinking about the way you can change relationships is, you initially. I think it's counterintuitive. Initially, what you do is you control your part of the relationship. So, like if you're talking to somebody else and they're not being nice to you, like I was on a flight recently and the guy next to me was not being nice to me. In fact, he was being really rude to me. You haven't heard this story, Diana? You're reacting to this.
No,
Um,
I didn't hear this story. What,
well,
but don't
like
laugh.
I was sitting in, I fly a lot.
Yeah.
Group three, platinum status, not a big deal. I don't like to throw that around a lot. Our team always rolls their eyes because that's a pretty big deal. But yeah, and so like I know the airplanes like we're flying out of and stuff like that, and I always try to get the same seats. And I sat down, and the guy said I was sitting in his seat, and I've done that before. Like I've sat in somebody else's seat. Like you just get on and get on autopilot, and it was like, oh yeah, I'm in the wrong whatever. But in this case, I said, "What seat are you?" And he showed me his ticket, and he was sitting in the empty seat next to me, was where he was supposed to sit. But he was determined. He was like, "No, no, no, I'm supposed to sit where you're sitting." So he sat down, but so I'm like, no, 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 it's this is where the seats are. I'm here, you're here, you're there, and showed him. And so he sat down, but he just stared at me, like really angrily stared at me, like really negative, like just like, "Rrr," like you could just tell. And so I looked at him and it was just like a short flight to like Dallas. And so I said, like, I'm like, hey, do you want to switch seats? We could switch seats. And he goes, well, yeah, because that's my seat anyway. And he was just a real ass about it. So we switched places. Okay, that's fine. So then I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't know, there's a little bit of me who's challenged sometimes when people are having difficult relationships. I think it's a work hazard of what we have to do. I'm like, I want to kind of win this guy over. I wonder if I can win this guy over. So we took off, and it was really obvious suddenly that that guy had never flown in his life because he was looking out the window. He's taking pictures out the window. So he wanted the window seat. That's why he was really caring about that window seat. And then he went to like adjust. He was cold and the air was blowing on him, and he was playing with the vent, but he didn't know how to shut it off. So I reached over and I said, "Hey, can I do that for you?" And I shut it off for him. And then suddenly he was kind of like, "Hmm." And then like then the food came, or we were flying a little bit farther, And he goes, hey, I've been hogging the arm rail. I'm sorry. If would you like, let you have the arm rail for a little while, and then we can switch off on it. Like, he suddenly engaged me and started being nice. And it turned out, so we started having a conversation. It turned out that the guy had never flown before. He was getting out of prison. He had been in prison for like 26 years, and he was flying to a city to go visit his daughter or his son who he had not seen in 26 years, and his mom who he had not seen in 26 years, and meet his granddaughter who's like 8 years old for the first time. And he was just super excited about it. So, I mean, just a lot. My point to all of that stuff is it's like you never know what the other person's going through if you're in a relationship and you want to help somebody. Like, sometimes you have to lean in and do things that maybe the other person doesn't deserve by their behavior. So, like, if you are, maybe your boss isn't giving you good feedback, but like Diana and Stephanie, like, you guys giving me the feedback in that moment helps me to feel, that feels good, and that does build a relationship, and that does make me more likely to probably give you that feedback. So just saying, like, if you don't like the relationship you have with your boss, there's a tendency to say, I want to go to my boss and say, this is why what you're doing wrong, when maybe the approach should be, maybe what you need to do is exhibit more right yourself, and then the other person might meet you where they are, where that relationship is. So that just occurred to me in terms of like relationships. It's not fair that it works that way, because a lot of people say, well, he's being a jerk and I'm doing this. Why do I have to be nice to the other person? It's like, well, to some extent, if you're being nice and you're showing some empathy and stuff, that maximizes the chance. That's your most powerful tool for potentially influencing the other person to change their behavior. So if you're an employee and you're feeling that, that's just one way maybe you can help your boss to be better.
That's a wild story. I had not heard that one either. Like, and also just to do a quick reaction here, like when you kept adding the details of like his story, oh my gosh, this guy spilled his guts to you. Like,
Well, just yeah, a little bit of empathy on like I showed him a little empathy on the vent. He showed me a little empathy on the arm rail. And I noticed that he was just a little observant, and I just watched him. And yeah, you think about the world. I mean, he was in jail for 26 years. Like, if you're sitting in their seat, like me as a business traveler in my world, if you're sitting in somebody else's seat and you're in the Midwest, you say, "Oh, oh, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you in my seat? Oh, let me check. Oh, that's a Midwest response to that. If you're in prison and someone's sitting next to your seat, I don't know if you know what it's like on the inside, Diana, but it's like I'm gonna cut you if you don't get out of my seat. And so that was a little bit of his response. I mean, he didn't threaten me at all, but I mean, it was like he was upset. I don't know why I said,
And
Diana, you know
like,
something.
I know more about the inside than you do, Don. That's what I'm gonna say. I just feel like that's true.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's what it's like on the inside. We'll have a whole episode about that. We can talk
Oh,
about that piece of that. But no, it's what we talk about a lot of, like, meeting people where they are, right? So I mean, it's understanding suddenly it's me observing him that, wow, he's taking pictures out of this place. Like, he's probably never been on a flight. He looks like he's really nervous. I don't know, but he doesn't look like he's afraid of flying. He must be nervous about something else. And then I just
hmm.
asked him the question, and then he kind of opened up to me a little bit about stuff. So yeah, sometimes,
Yeah.
like, if your manager's not giving you feedback, it may not be because they don't think you're doing a good job. It may not be because they don't think that they don't like you, or they're not giving you feedback. It might mean that they actually think you're doing such a good job that they're making the mistake of not giving you the feedback. That is probably the most likely scenario, actually, working with lots of managers. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't. So you can, like, do what Diana said and maybe go to them and say, hey, I would like a little more feedback from time to time. Like, tell me what's going on, or I'm feeling a little bit cracked, help me. I'm drying out, I need some feedback. Or change how you treat them a little bit, and start giving them a little bit of feedback on the things that you see them doing really well. They may not respond immediately to that. And don't spin off and say, well, I changed this and now I have these demands and now you're going to fix this. But I mean, just that trick goes a long way sometimes.
Yeah. That's so good. And I really like how you connected that, like, in the story where you're like, why would I be nice to somebody who's being a jerk to me? And I do think that is like a little bit of our like initial like lizard reptilian brain fight or flight. Like, why would I be nice to you and go out of my way to do this when you're treating me poorly? And I think it's because like we want to be better people. Like it's a part of our humanity. Like I want to do the right things. And so like how I will say it sometimes to like people when I'm coaching is like make yourself proud here. And sometimes making yourself proud means you don't meet someone 50-50, you go the extra space to them. And we'll hear that a lot from employees who will tell us stories about their managers. And it's always like, this is what my manager isn't doing. This is where my manager is failing and all of this. And I'm like, well, what if you just went to them and asked for that instead of waiting for them to come up with a development plan for you or waiting for them to notice you for a promotion? Like, what if you just went to where they are and said like, hey, I would love to have this or do this with you. And I think, to give all of our managers out there some grace is like, they're all humans too. And they might have just gotten busy. And because you're doing a good job, they're not laying up at night worrying about you as the same way as the person who keeps breaking things, right, at work. So they care. They probably really do care. But yeah, you're right. They might not be expressing it super well. And so that's where I think you can give the gentle feedback. But a great way to do that is just go to meet them where they are and say like, hey, like you're starting to interview candidates for this job. And like, I actually think I'm the right fit for that. And instead of, being sad or cracking because they didn't think about you or they're not developing you, just like go to them and be like, I want that, like, and consider me, or I want the training and the skills. So that way you do think of me when these things come up.
Yeah. And if none of that works, then you might end the relationship, right? Then you might go on to a next job. But if you do end the relationship as an employee, I'm going to give you some tough love right now. Remember that you're the one that decided to end that relationship. You're the one that decided to move on. You can say that it was everybody else that did these things to you to move on, but remember, that's you giving up your power. That's you getting into a victim mindset. And that's you setting yourself up for the next job of your next manager also not giving you enough feedback for things. You've got control. And I love that, Stephanie, make yourself proud. Make yourself proud. Leave the right way. Work really hard the whole time. Do all the things. And then if you feel yourself cracking, like defend yourself, take care of yourself, but make sure you're focused on the things that you can actually do for yourself, not what everybody else is doing or not doing around you. I think this is a great topic. This is a good discussion, guys. We crushed this, especially the feedback from me. I appreciate that. You guys were fantastic.
We felt valued and heard, so we just did a better job. So thanks.
Neil just did that live for all of you on the podcast.
Oh my gosh. Oh, funny. Well, I agree. This has been a really good topic. And so this is one, I personally would love to hear your thoughts on this. Like if you're listening to this episode and this has resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. If you want to shoot over a message of like, how does this show up for you? Do you feel like you're in that place of quiet cracking, or, maybe you're a manager listening to this and thinking like, oh my gosh, like maybe I have people that are cracking on my team and what do I do? We'd love to hear from you and give some support. So be sure to listen to the outro for how to get a hold of us. And if you have other ideas or things you want us to talk about on the podcast that would be relevant for you and your team, send us those as well. But yeah, thanks Dawn and Diana for an awesome conversation today. And we'll see you back here soon.
Thank you for listening to the People Centric Podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and lead well.